In this video, we're going to go over every single expense that I've spent on my six-figure website, and this is going to include all the ongoing costs, all the maintenance costs, as well as all the upfront costs. And I am probably one of the most frugal people you will meet, so a lot of the brands I'm going to recommend, I don't actually get like referral codes from them or anything, and they're going to be the types that aren't really part of the mainstream, so there is a lot of things you can hear about that you can't really hear from other videos. Most people just pedal for certain brands solely because they have affiliate codes for them. It's not actually because they think they're the best. And I have like a semi-tech background, kind of like in a more strategic sense. Like I can't code at all, but I've worked with a lot of people who do. So I do understand like the backgrounds of what actually makes good web hosting, what actually is good SEO, and things of that nature. So the first year was actually pretty interesting because I didn't actually spend much on the site. I really just paid for the domain name and just very, very cheap hosting. Nowadays, I actually spend quite a bit on the site, but that's mainly due to the high traffic that it gets. So I essentially make all the money back that I spend. So in the beginning, I actually just reinvested all the profits back into the website in order to try to grow it later on. And there are very specific ways you have to do that, which make it a little more effective than most. I also avoided a lot of other recurring costs that other people normally have to deal with because of the way I set up the website to begin with. So the first years I was working at a company, I started building the website and I made one key mistake that I kind of regret. So you know how I said I invested a lot of the profits of the website back into the website? I didn't exactly invest a lot of my salary into the website. Instead, I invested it in things like stocks and whatnot, which did fine. Like I did get good returns on them, but it's nowhere near the returns I could have gotten if I had just invested in myself and believed in myself. So little regrets there. Hopefully, if you guys are confident in something and know it will work, definitely I advise using some way to subsidize that dream, because had I done that earlier, I'd make a lot more money than I do right now. But first, let me give you an example of how cheap I am or how frugal I am. It depends on how you look at it. So a lot of people in my niche, I'm in the gaming niche, they do .gg domains, and .gg domains cost around like $70. And I was like, nah, that's too expensive for me. That's per year, by the way. And instead, I bought a .lol domain because all the .coms are taken. Pretty much every good .com, it's probably taken. So I did a .lol, which no one uses, right? People use .orgs, .coms, .ios, .ggs if you're in a particular niche. No one uses .lol, but I was like, I feel like I'm one of the pioneers of that. Whoever invented that, it's called top-level domains. They probably owe me something because I'm pretty sure I'm one of the bigger .lol websites in the world right now. But the costs for those are around $25 a year, but there is like a special because no one uses those domain names, and I pretty much got it for like $1 for the first year, which was very, very nice. I used a website called Namecheap.com to get my domain name, and a lot of people use like GoDaddy, they use all this other stuff, but Namecheap, it has either the same or better prices than all the mainstream ones, but it also has more available top-level domains, which is what I needed personally in this specific situation. I promise you, this is the only affiliate code I have. In fact, I don't even use them for most of my sites anymore. I use Cloudflare for all my .coms and .orgs, but for my .lols, for my .ggs, I'm using Namecheap. Affiliate link down below. But they really do have the best pricing. You can look it up. I'm not just saying this for no reason. All in all, maybe I should have just bought a .gg, but you could have argued that maybe the .lol maybe attracted new eyes that wouldn't normally be into that type of stuff. The next thing we have is hosting. So hosting can either be really expensive or really cheap. It depends on how you do it. So what a lot of people do, they go on something like Kinsta, and those are like pretty good plans, but they're a little pricey, and they have a limit on how much traffic you can get. The best way to do it for cheap is to buy your own server by using like a managed cloud server such as like Cloudways, or getting like a multi-website plan on a shared hosting site. Those are typically going to be the cheapest. So I actually made a website for my mom. She does her like own little hobby, which kind of turned into her profession now too. And I paid for a plan there. It costed like $10 a year for website hosting, which is extremely cheap. And you could have up to 5 websites. So at first I hosted my site on there, and it essentially costed nothing because I was already paying for it. And even if I had to get my own plan, it's very cheap compared to all the other sites like GoDaddy, WP Engine, all the popular ones that you normally hear about. I'm not actually sure what the pricing of one.com is right now, but they are like very, very cheap and very easy to get set up. A lot of the more advanced hosting solutions, they require you to know some sort of tech, which I do, so I eventually switched over onto those. But for 99% of people, just pay the premium, maybe go with like a Squarespace or something, and just have everything handled automatically for you. But if you want like the best website speed, which is very important, if you want like all the customization options that you could ever imagine, then you have to kind of manage it yourself. However, I do recommend sticking to the beginner hosting platforms because you often end up confusing yourself for no reason if you try to go for something more advanced. I will say that everything I did with one.com was like one-click setup, one-click install, and it's just like drag and dropping, doing everything pretty easily. In year 2, I use a service called Cloudways, and I use this to manage all my tiny websites. So if there's a website that I don't get a lot of traffic on, so like my mom's website's there, a lot of my smaller projects are there, you can just buy a small server, and it's really, really cheap compared to all the shared hosting sites, and it gives you faster application speed. And you can just put as many applications as you want onto those because if you don't get traffic on them, like, it's not really going to slow down or clog up the servers. The next thing you need to pay for your website is potentially themes for your WordPress page. So I actually use all free themes for the first year I was out, and it was perfectly fine. There really wasn't anything wrong with it. There are a few customizations I couldn't really do, but it's not going to be at the end of the world. If you're stressing about all the tiny details on your website, you're not going to make it. You have to focus on the bigger picture, which is just making good content for people to go to your site, because that's essentially what a website's for. It's for information or for entertainment or what have you. For content, I use Google Docs for drafting, or I just wrote it directly on the site and saved it as a draft. And then for thumbnails, I use Photopea, which is a free tool. I'm not sure if it's legal, but I see a lot of people using it. And yeah, so for like around $1 a month, maybe $2 a month, you could just get set up, get your plan going, and get your website up and running. $1 for the domain name if you get it off a special deal, and $1 for hosting service if you also get like a sign-up deal. And that's pretty much it, free themes, and that's all there is for year 1. But as my website grew, I had to grow too, and I had to grow my servers and all the backend stuff as well. So on year 2, I started making a little bit of money. So it was around like a couple hundred a month at this point, which may sound like a lot to some people or sound like nothing to some others. But when you make a couple hundred, you could start buying some of those premium themes. You know, you can maybe get better web hosting, maybe upgrade your servers a little bit, maybe even splurge for the .gg domain name, am I right? But the first upgrade I made was buying the GeneratePress theme. And this was a premium theme, and I really think it just was the best one on the market at the time. But one thing I did differently was I bought the lifetime membership, because over, I think, like 3 or 4 years, it pays for itself off. And if you plan to have the website for a long time or plan to use it on multiple websites, which is what I would do, it's like very, very cheap per website, you know? And it's cheaper than buying like an annual plan and all that nonsense. But I bought the lifetime plan. I've been using it on maybe 5 to 10 websites. 5 of them failed, 5 of them are still active. And you can have it for up to 500 different websites. And I think I bought it off like a Christmas sale, so it was like even further discounted. So it's almost Christmas. So maybe you want to wait for that if you want to upgrade to a premium theme. Next, I upgraded my website hosting. So the Cloudways platform is pretty good, but it's not good for scaling apps. So if you are like a local business owner, Cloudways is probably one of the best things you can have, especially multiple small local businesses. But if you have a global website, which I did for gaming, you need to be able to scale to handle like huge volumes. And for that reason, I went with a pay-as-you-go service, and I use Kloss.com. And this is a bit of a more advanced hosting service. Not a lot of people know about it, but it's really just best in class for 99% of everything you need in web hosting. So yeah, you guys can read about it. I learned a lot about WordPress speed, and pretty much everyone who talks about like the best hosting services, it's going to be Kloss.com, or anyone with a technical background, that is. But essentially, upgrading your web hosting is kind of like upgrading your plumbing. You're not going to see the benefits with your eyes, but you're just going to have a lot less problems down the road. The one caveat, again, is that it's not quite for beginners. I have no coding experience. I'm able to work my way around it, but maybe there's some situations where I could have benefited from being more tech savvy, and they don't have a great support system, which is fine because they just focus on providing best-in-class type of gear. Next, I upgraded my email solution. So before, I was just using like a free integrated email plan, but Kloss doesn't have an email service because they know that Google has the best-in-class one, and they recommend you use that. But I'm a little too cheap for Google, and Google charges around, I think, $12 a month or $8 a month, somewhere around there for email attached to your domain, and that's too expensive for me. I know it's like pennies in the grand scheme of things if your website's making a lot, but instead I went with a website called megadu.com, and you can have, for $19 a year, email service for multiple websites. So I use this for a lot of different stuff, and yeah, it's just by far the cheapest. It's called like the micro plan or something, and yeah, that's how bad I am with like not wanting to spend money. So I am also a YouTuber, if you guys didn't know that. So I make guides for games, and it was a little hard to keep up with a lot of the scheduling. So I did hire some writers eventually, and I paid them per word or per article depending on the person and what they felt comfortable with. That's another cost that I incurred. I think the per word payment scheme is a little bit better in the long run, but having flat fee is easier for most people. But it really depends on how much your writers value their time for those specific payments. I didn't really use any project management tools. I just used Discord to talk with them because I didn't really have like that many writers. It was just maybe one or two at a time to kind of just help me bump up my content creation during the week. Next up, again, since I am a YouTuber, I make thumbnails, I do video editing. So I did upgrade my graphic design software. I bought a program called Affinity, and it's pretty much Photoshop, and it's better than Photopea because you have your own desktop application that you can use, and it's a lot easier than just using like the web version that they have. Through this, I think it costed like $50 or something like that for 3 different programs, because again, I bought it during like a Christmas sale, and yeah, that's really all there is to it. Pretty solid app overall. It does almost everything Photoshop does. It does some things better, does some things worse. It's just like a different product. I will note that this purchase was unnecessary because again, you could use GIMP or Photopea for all your graphic design needs. That's my year 2 though. That's more of the intermediate middle ground type of spending. So I have like 3 different tiers of spending per se for pretty much everything to do with a blog or website. I will say that it's probably the worst place to be in the middle ground because unless you don't peak that high, you want to go either like with the best or with the cheapest. I really wish I skipped the middle ground because in year 3, I ended up buying Photoshop anyways, like the monthly subscription on Adobe Cloud. So I just like wasted the money buying all the Affinity products before, which I guess isn't a complete waste because they still do some things better than Photoshop, but it's annoying to switch between the two, so it's easier just to stick to one of them. I primarily did it because I needed Adobe Premiere in order to work with the editors that I have, and no one in the YouTube space actually uses DaVinci Resolve, which is what I was using before. Yeah, all the indie YouTubers will use it, but all the like professional editors or like freelance editors, they all use Premiere Pro. I have not met one that doesn't use anything else. They don't even use Final Cut. They don't use, it's just Premiere, so you just have to buy that if you are directly working with them. And I wanted to like share files with them. I wanted to help them edit. I wanted them to help me edit. So with like file sharing type of stuff, like Adobe's just the best for that. As for other upgrades, I already had the best web hosting for WordPress. And the only real thing I could have upgraded was maybe my email service, but I never send any emails. So there's no point in upgrading to the Google Office Suite or whatever it's called. So I just stuck with the Megadu $19 per year plan. It might even be cheaper. I don't even know the price. I just know it's under $20. But definitely, I think you guys should copy what I did in year 1, which was spend as little as possible. And when you do spend, try to buy like the lifetime plans if possible, because if you are like quitting your job to do something, like you likely will be doing it for the next couple of years. Like I had a Discord bot that I bought. I used like a lifetime price, and yeah, it's like I've already made back the money had I paid for the bot per year. And I do this for like a lot of different expenses that I have for the content creation life, as you would call it. It's kind of cringe saying that, but you know, it is what it is. It is a space I'm in, even though I like am embarrassed about it or like cringe every time I say influencer. It's not like, it's just what it is, right? I can't really change that. But if you are just starting out and you don't know if you're actually going to become like a content creator or website owner, definitely just don't spend anything, because you could do everything for free except for the hosting and the domain name. Those are the only 2 things you should have to pay for. And if you're someone who is like a freelancer, maybe you help out your mom, maybe you help out your friend's mom, and I don't mean with that other stuff, right? And you're like making websites for a bunch of different people, go ahead and look at a service like Cloudways, because it's really good on those to get like unlimited sites, because most people's websites will not get any traffic. And it's a little bit of a sad reality, but the truth hurts sometimes, right? In terms of like regrets of any purchases, I don't really have that many. Obviously, I did like waste money because I had a very conservative, like tiered type of approach, where when I was a small creator, I spent nothing. When I was a medium one, I bought all the medium options. And when I was a big one, I bought all the big options. I could have just started at the highest level, right? But again, I just scaled as my business grew, and pretty much it paid for itself like that. Again, nothing in life is guaranteed, so if you just go out and buy like the best gear and stuff, if you are just starting out, it's a little risky. I'm not saying don't do it, and I'm not saying don't believe in yourself, because I really wish I believed in myself a little bit more, but it's really risky to do. If you're very risk averse like me, then just do the cheapest option. When you're medium, buy the medium options, and then like so on and so forth, because it could have just very well ended maybe if I made like 1,000 a month or something like that, and it never got bigger, and that would have been, I guess, a little bit depressing. But yeah, it would depend on how much work I spend on the website per week. But do let me know down in the comments what questions you have about like which products to use for which type of thing. Like if you're asking for like theme recommendations, hosting recommendations, if it's not covered in the video, like I will be trying to answer all the stuff down there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about like my financial journey, I have like a video up here where I go over like my plan to retire and how I actually did retire. And yeah, part of it wasn't actually related to the website earnings. All the website stuff, all the YouTube stuff that I make, it's literally all just like a bonus, because I saved enough money to kind of retire or stop working anyways. But that's going to be it for me. I hope to see you all later.